Waves as high as mountains thundered across Polaris's sapphire plains, booming like the slow pulse of a colossal heart. The planet was 98% water, a sphere sheathed in tier after tier of roiling ocean and mist. Sunlight refracted through airborne vapor, painting rainbows that bled into storm clouds the color of bruises. Somewhere, beneath that chaotic majesty, Captain Marek Soren hung in the black quiet of 100 fathoms, listening to the tap of his own blood in his ears and waiting for the signal that would determine whether humanity survived the night. He stroked his helmet's pressure seals, feeling the faint tremor of distant depth charges. The Chlorax eight-limbed, chlorine-breathing leviathans with iron hides and a navy older than most human civilizations were celebrating. They had just executed 3 more coastal colonies, sealing the domed habitats in green fire, pumping them full of searing, corrosive gas until everything human inside bubbled away. Marek had witnessed the broadcast. He had also watched his younger sister die at Copernicus Station 3 years earlier in the same bilious storm. The memory tasted like copper. Tonight, he intended to return the favor. Beside him drifted Lieutenant Shirin Afolayan, her exosuit glowing faint amber as life support lines pulsed. Her voice crackled through the silent murk on an encoded ultrasonic carrier. Telemetry lock confirmed. Target Dreadnought Righteous Typhoon at 900 meters, chlorine pressure stable, crew complement estimated 700. Marek exhaled. Even that small hiss diffused in the dense brine, lost amid the pops of shrimp and the plaintive songs of distant whales. I don't need the numbers, Lieutenant. Just tell me the ramp sills will open when we reach them. They'll open, Shirin replied, because we rewrote their firmware ourselves. And because Olivia is riding shotgun on the dorsal datanet. Olivia Kenzaki was the team's ghost coder, a savant who processed Chlorax glyph logic faster than most people blinked. She occupied a Command/Helen orbit right now, her brain spliced into the captured comm satellite Argus 4, chewing through alien security subroutines, while microthrusters kept the derelict platform from tumbling. Marek glanced upward, imagining her hunched in that coffin-like capsule, fingers dancing across a holographic sphere, spinning entire architectures into surrender. Good. They needed every advantage. 4 more aquanauts formed on his 6, cutting narrow wakes through phosphorescent plankton. Each suit bristled with modular rails, coil spears, reaction axles, adaptive hydrotorpedoes, shorter than a human arm but capable of splitting battleships along their keels. Marek signaled, and the squad sank into a thermal layer, blacker and colder than winter midnight. The Righteous Typhoon emerged from the gloom like a submerged moon. It was 500 meters stem to stern, a cathedral of hinged armor plates wrapped around gargantuan gas tanks that glowed viridian. Twin screw drives churned. Luminescent spores spiraled around its hydrojet veins. Gargoyle cannons sat silent for now, their ports exhaling wisps of chlorine that shimmered into green snow. Marek's squad hugged the belly of the dreadnought, magnet boots locking onto ribbed titanium. Shirin patched into the alien umbilical lines and injected a parasite routine. They waited, 17 heartbeats. The outer cargo ramp yawed wide, seawater flooding a chamber meant for boarding craft. One soft, pulsing amber light blinked over the threshold. Olivia's go code. The humans slipped inside. Pressure doors irised shut behind them. Pumps screamed, voiding Polaris's seawater and replacing it with a breathable, though heavily saline mix. Moments later, the chambered light swung from red to white. 6 Chlorax troopers scuttled in, their suit vents spewing chlorine. Ink-black eyes widened as they saw the intruders who stood tall on only 2 limbs. Before alarms could rise, Marek raised his spear rifle and triggered an impeller burst. Super-cavitating slugs punched through one helm, then ricocheted, shattering a second. Shirin's haptic blades whirred, and 2 more troopers collapsed, their emerald ichor hissing on the deck. The fight lasted 14 seconds, but the dreadnought shuddered as General Quarters klaxons howled. Green vapor jetted from sealing valves, scalding to human lungs. Merrick's squad sprinted through corridors lit by flickering tritium rods, each footfall magnetizing against alloy plates to counter the reduced gravity. They reached Main Con, a hollow sphere of glassy resin encasing a rotating command throne. A ray of prismatic glyphs floated in holographic strata like schools of fish. The Chlorax captain unfurled from his seat, a towering creature with mandibles stained citron. His dorsal vents roared, launching him forward in a blur. Merrick met the rush with a grav echolocator disc. The device detonated micro-singularities that clamped the alien to the deck. Chirin vaulted over and slid a pike blade through the Chlorax breathing membranes. Chlorine hissed. The captain twitched once, then lay still. Olivia's voice cracked in Merrick's ear. "Bridge is ours. I've synchronized helm feeds and scrubbed the fleet registry. Typhoon now reports catastrophic coolant failure to her sisters. You're invisible." Merrick locked down the sphere's security baffles. Not invisible enough. Chlorax admirals aren't fools. Spin up the jump turbines. We sail now. A whirlwind of automated servitors raced along conduits yanking levers. The dreadnoughts reactor, an iridium-encased cyclotron that used supersaturated brine as reaction mass, growled alive. Propellers engaged. Typhoon's bulk drifted from her patrol station in a swirl of green murk. On tactical overlays, Merrick saw 2 other Chlorax battleships hold course toward the equatorial siege zone. Perfect. Their attention remained locked on the final purge of Haven City, a human atoll arcology already belching smoke. "Set heading 362, he told the navigation spine. "Depth -100. New objective, rendezvous with the Tethys Vault." The Tethys Vault was humanity's last deep-sea fortress, a geological trench converted into a mobile dry duct and weapons lab. There, rogue scientists had perfected adaptive hydro-torpedoes, devices that read ambient salinity, pressure, and flow vectors, then morphed internal turbine geometry in microseconds to maintain supercavitation. That meant the torpedoes could slither through wake turbulence, curve behind target shields, and punch through meter-thick armor with a bloom of implosive water jets. They were the only munitions Chlorax plating had failed to shrug off in 6 years of war, so of course, the aliens had blanketed the trench in sensor webs and neutron mines. To smuggle a dreadnought in under their snouts required the audacity of lunatics, or the fury of human orphans with nothing left to lose. Chirin slid beside Merrick, eyes bright behind her visor. "You think the Vault crews will trust us arriving in the enemy's flagship?" "Not after the first glance," Merrick answered. "Huh?" "But I plan on hailing them with my mother's call sign. Admiral Ruiz trained with her. He'll recognize the encryption salt." "And if he doesn't?" Merrick's jaw tightened. "Then we'll open every silo ourselves and pray the torps don't melt us before we finish blowing the Vault's doors off." He said it lightly, but Chirin heard the tremor under his words. Everyone understood the stakes. Deliver Typhoon and its reactor core to the Vault to fuel the final counterstrike, or watch humanity drown in acid. They skimmed along abyssal shelves, using the dreadnought's gravitic shadow to mask smaller signals. Hours bled by. Depth squids cruised in silent schools, attracted by the hull's electroluminescent skin. The ocean grew darker, colder, as though reality itself forgot to draw breath. Finally, sonar returned a jagged silhouette, the Vault. It resembled an upside-down mountain, its apex anchored in bedrock, its vast hangar mouths yawning into open water. Defense pylons ringed the perimeter, bristling with rail turrets. Target lock pips peppered Typhoon's HUD. "Stand by," Merrick said. "Olivia, transmit handshake code." A tense 30 seconds passed, then rails powered down, and a voice, dusty with exhaustion but unmistakably human, whispered across the channel. "Identification confirmed. Welcome home, aquanauts." Docking corridor 14 extended. Chirin's shoulders sagged. Ruiz still breathes. Ruiz looked older than legends when Merrick greeted him. The Admiral's once polished scalp had grown a film of frost. Stubble peppered his cheeks like ash, yet his eyes blazed with a survivor's stubborn heat as he surveyed the captured dreadnought. "You brought us a monster," Ruiz said. "Brought ourselves, sir," Merrick answered. "The monster is just a bonus." Ruiz grunted. "We scavenge its reactor and coil guns. But that's not enough. The Chlorax fleet in orbit numbers 37 capital ships. Even with hydro-torpedoes, we lack platforms to deliver them." Merrick spread his hands. "Then turn Typhoon into the platform. Load every torpedo we have into her launch gullets. Her hull can take it. We ride her like a Trojan whale, straight into the Chlorax maelstrom." Ruiz studied him. "You'll never escape once they realize you're aboard." "Escape isn't a metric anymore," Merrick said softly. Shirin and the others nodded. They had rehearsed this calculus ever since Copernica burned. The Admiral's gaze flickered toward the viewport, where green nebulae of chlorine swirled around drifting war debris. "There may be another path," he murmured. "We've been studying Paloris's cryovolcanic moons. Their periapsis tides pump mantle water through fissures at 30 kilometers per second, creating geysers that reach low orbit. If we trigger synchronized eruptions above the fleet's anchor point, we hit them from below and above at the same time," Shireen finished, eyes widening. "Orbital geyser strikes." Ruiz nodded. "A fusillade of hyperdense ice and rock, accelerated by gravity and vent pressure. Impact energy equals gigaton ordnance. But we'd still need someone inside the atmosphere to herd the fleet into the kill zone," Marek said, catching on. "Someone flying their flag, maybe broadcasting updated formation orders they'll think come from high command." Everyone looked at the hulking dreadnought moored to the vault's superstructure. Typhoon gleamed like a corpse lantern. "I guess we volunteer," Marek sighed. Preparations consumed 40 frantic hours. Dock workers cannibalized the vault's last stores, 600 adaptive hydro-torpedoes, 22 experimental stealth drones, and a warhead laced with resonant wave weave designed not merely to explode, but to sing through hulls and liquefy them from within. Olivia rewired Typhoon subspace transceivers to spoof the Chlorax Admiralty frequency, then migrated her consciousness into the Dreadnought's core computer via a tangle of fiber nerves. She no longer required bodies. She would be the ship. Shireen oversaw torpedo integration. "Adaptive routine stable," she reported. "Targets, chlorine reactor stacks, and dorsal launch cradles." Splashes predicted 93% lethal. Ruiz monitored lunar telescopes. His voice broke when he announced, "Tidal pump at peak resonance. Geyser lines primed. Window opens in 4 hours, closes in 5. After that, moons drift out of alignment for another decade. Then we finish this tonight," Merrick said. Typhoon's hangar locks disengaged with a shudder that rattled every bolt in her spine. The dreadnought ascended, flanked by 2 decoy corvettes built from scavenged plating. Lonnie Blake hauled me backwards. Al tried to stop her. They climbed through pelagic twilight until metallic clouds swallowed them. Lightning caressed the hull, turning rivets into stars. Ventral antennas caught bursts of chlorine chatter. The Chlorax Armada formed a defensive wheel over Haven City's ruins, preparing to plunge and sweep the oceans clean. Marek broadcast an authoritative glyph string Olivia had composited from archived Chlorax command fragments. Instantly, 8 cruiser captains signaled acknowledgement. Their vessels pivoted, adopting the new staging coordinates Olivia provided, exactly beneath the geosynchronous node where the geyser swarm would erupt. The ruse worked, because the Chlorax worldview contained an unshakable premise. No other species could possibly commandeer one of their dreadnoughts. That arrogance now buried them. As Typhoon breached into the thin-air stratopause, Paloris's scarlet curvature glittered below. Above, the mustard-green halos of chlorine warships floated like malignant angels. Merrick stood on the bridge between worlds, fists clenched, lungs aching inside his suit even with oxygen pumps at max. He thought of his sister, of Copernicus' burning skyline, of every laughter memory stolen by chlorine storms. He was done grieving. "Olivia, initiate stage 1. The dreadnoughts' launch bays dilated. Hydro-torpedoes spilled into freefall, fins telescoping. Micro-thrusters fired, guiding silver darts down planetary gravity wells. Each torpedo referenced real-time salinity maps, adjusting turbine vanes to guarantee shockwave containment. They streaked toward the Clorax wheel, still blissfully unaware. Stage 2 ignited on schedule. The moons Carme and Pasithea flexed. Kilometers-wide fissures yawned, and cryomagma fountains erupted, hurling glittering columns of ice, rock, and superheated steam across vacuum. The geysers intersected Pelorus's exosphere right above the Armada. They arrived first as flashes picked up by sensor arrays, too bright to parse. Then they became spears. At that precise instant, Olivia dropped Typhoon's broadcast mask and blasted a hemispheric pulse of human languages. Stitched with raw defiance, Clorax captains flared vents in shock. They turned guns skyward, but trajectory predictors howled mismatch alarms. They pivoted downward, seeking the traitor dreadnought, but hydro-torpedoes were already inside their shields, burrowing. The first torpedo struck Cruiser Vroth with a muffled pop, more gesture than blast. A millisecond later, implosive cavitation collapsed half the hull, folding it like wet paper. Chlorine reactors burst in lime fireworks. 20 more detonations blossomed in quick union, turning the wheel formation into shrapnel. Then the heavens fell. Orbital geysers hammered destroyers, punching through armor, slagging dorsal turrets, bulldozing ships into lower orbit, where atmospheric drag clawed them apart. The night sky became a chandelier of burning copper. Back on Typhoon's bridge, radiation alarms screamed as debris fields peppered them. On Typhoon's bridge, radiation alarms screamed as debris fields peppered them. Marek steadied himself. Stage 3, ramming, run! He cut power to starboard screws and vectored full-thrust dorsal, tipping the dreadnought into a death dive aimed at the Clorax flagship, Sovereign Reef, a behemoth with triple-hulled bulk and a crest of living coral symbiotes. Its gunnery glowed amber, spitting ionic lances that grazed Typhoon's flank, gouging trenches. Emergency plates slammed shut around the bridge. Shireen laughed, half manic. 2 kilometers! Armspire loaded, Olivia announced through speakers. Fusing now. In the cargo hold lay the resonant wave-weave warhead, its core a lattice tuned to the biomechanical frequency of Clorax exoskeletons. Marek, key to code only Ruiz and he shared. Countdown began at 30 seconds. Sovereign Reef realized too late what the humans intended. Vent thrusters fired in fraught desperation, but Typhoon had mass, velocity, and vengeance. She smashed into the flagship just aft of its ventral keel. For one heartbeat, everything froze, a silent tableau of 2 leviathans kissing. Then the wave weave sang. Sonics rippled through hulls, down corridors, through crew compartments. Metal wavered like cloth. Chlorine gas turned to green mists filled with shimmering dust as Clorax bodies dissolved where they stood. Outwardly, nothing seemed explosive until Sovereign Reef's skeletal structure failed, pancaking inward under its own weight, splitting along seams. A white-hot core blossom swallowed both dreadnoughts. High above, orbital sensors captured the bloom, a lotus of argent and emerald petals expanding to engulf 3 more cruisers. Residual shockwaves tore apart stragglers. In under 20 minutes, the Clorax Navy over Pelorus ceased to exist. Silence followed. Ash drifted in microgravity. Half-melted hull fragments glittered like obsidian hailstones. Here and there, pockets of chlorine fizzed out angrily, but no Clorax survivors rallied. Their empire's pride had shattered on an oceanic altar built by the species they sought to exterminate. Yet inside that detonation's silent eye, a miracle unfurled. Olivia had mapped Typhoon's data core, embedding her digital soul in an armored cryo vault, jettisoned seconds before impact. The pod tumbled, glinting. and inside still breathed Marek, Shireen, and 3 others crammed into an escape spindle designed for high-rank Clarax dignitaries. Pain lanced Marek's ribs where impact harnesses had dug trenches, but he was alive. Shireen's gauntlet found his. "We did it," she whispered. Through cracked viewports they watched debris rain toward Polaris. Flaring as it met atmospheric friction, sunlight crept over the horizon, turning the ocean below into quicksilver. For the first time in years, the water world looked like a place of promise rather than perdition. A hail pinged, weak but steady. The vault's frequency. "Unknown pod. Identify." Marek inhaled salt-tainted air from the spindle's last bottle. "This is Captain Marek Sorin, Provisional Commanding Officer of Nothing at All. Requesting pickup. Bring coffee." Against the dark beyond the hatch, distant thrusters winked. Human salvage corvettes rising to fetch their heroes. Marek closed his eyes, sensing Polaris's tide call him home. The war might not be wholly done. Somewhere in the cosmos more Clorax fleets might brood. But on this day, on this ocean, humanity had proved it could drown fear with courage. "And next time," Shireen murmured, head resting against the hull, "let's weaponize something peaceful like..." "Music?" Marek chuckled. Sore ribs protested. "Adaptive symphonies, orbital lullabies, could work." Below, dawn flooded the waves. Above, a wrecked navy drifted in shards, and in the watchful stillness between, a handful of aquanauts floated free proof that when water and will combine, they can carve mountains, even out of starlight.